welcome or welcome back to the channel. I'm Judy and I love history, biography, and the natural world. Whether I'm traveling in person or exploring from my armchair, I often find myself thinking about why certain stories seem to stick with me. When I do, I always like to learn more. There are plenty of ways to do this that don't involve digging through manuscripts or trying to work my way through the dullest, longest, most heavily footnoted book imaginable. Digital information, thought of broadly, can be your friend. Is there garbage out there on the internet? You better believe it, and it pays to always check your sources. However, digital information is actually a pretty broad term. It can include things like music, movies, or plays that are recorded and available on any of a dozen or more different kinds of media. It can even include books once they've been digitized and made available for download. Today, I'm going to tell you about two stories that involve the same general group of people, the Plantagenet kings of England. In one, a movie, we learn about a specific meeting that took up in Chinon, France. In the second, we find out what one author thinks might have happened if history had changed. If you love books and you think they're too expensive, or if the library is a bit out of reach, stick with me to the end. I'll show you an alternative that will let you find some great reads online and probably for free. Today's trip isn't going to require you to get out of your armchair, much less get in a car. So settle in with your favorite drink and join me as the Armchair Traveler investigates. If you enjoy this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with others. Your support will help the channel grow and help me create more content for you. When I returned from a long trip that included Chinon, France, I realized I wanted to dig deeper into the town's history, and especially its crown jewel, the fortress of Chinon. There's not that much information available about how it was developed. My research led me straight to the famous family who mostly built it and lived there, the Plantagenets. At the time, I barely knew anything about the fortress or castle architecture or what life would have been like in one of those rock-hewn places. I owned books on Eleanor of Aquitaine, but the castle? It was all new to me. And I quickly discovered it wasn't just a pile of ruins. It was a stage where some of the most powerful personalities of the Middle Age played out their rivalries. Most movies about that era focus on knights and battles and banners, while the women are mostly treated as background decoration. Eleanor of Aquitaine, then Queen of England as well, and her home at Chinon deserved far better. Then I remembered a film that told the story, and fairly accurately. I first saw it a very long time ago. It was in the summer of 1969, the only summer I spent at home after I left for college. My mom's house didn't have air conditioning, and Indiana summers were and remain absolutely brutal. My escape was a grand old movie palace downtown, the Indiana Theater, with carved plaster on the walls, red velvet curtains, and, most importantly, air conditioning. That summer, I watched The Lion in Winter. In fact, I went back and watched it twice, as I recall. It starred Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn. I'd just finished my first year of French, but I hadn't really studied French history or ever traveled beyond the borders of the United States. This movie hooked me instantly. It was based on a stage play and offered a dramatized but fairly accurate glimpse of medieval politics, family drama, and what it was like to live in one of those palaces. The story unfolded in Chinon in 1183. King Henry was holding a Christmas court. He had released Eleanor from confinement in England. Their first son, Henry the young king, had died the previous summer. Richard, the second son, and Geoffrey, the third son, and a very young Timothy Dalton, playing King Philip of France, plotted and schemed in scenes that felt really alive and dangerous. One detail stuck with me, the lack of their mourning for the dead son. Perhaps in the 12th century, people learned to move on more quickly than we do today. If you haven't seen the movie, I can recommend it, maybe on one of those old movie channels for free. Unfortunately, Chinon Castle was a crumbling ruin at the time of filming, so the production carefully recreated details like the great ramp leading up to the fortress. In the Middle Ages, everyone had to climb that ramp, and today you can too, though thankfully modern Chinon has added an elevator for those of us who prefer a ride. Watching The Lion in Winter could change the way you look at history. It wasn't just names in a textbook. It was flesh and blood, ambition and betrayal, and portrayed in places you can still walk today. And for me, that was the beginning of a lifelong fascination with that family. History is fascinating and often fun, but writing it properly takes enormous amounts of research, focus, time, and energy. And sometimes, and I learned this one the hard way, after months of digging and writing and organizing, you reach the end only to realize the story's already been told, or maybe it wasn't that interesting after all, or worst of all, nobody else is interested. But information is never wasted if you know how to use it. Some creators go further than simple retelling of their stories. They take history as a springboard and ask, what if? Science fiction often conjures up space travel or alien races, but sometimes it strikes much closer to home. A perfect example is Randall Garrett's Lord Darcy Investigates. Like the film Lion in Winter, Garrett begins with real history and then imagines an alternate one. This genre, alternate history, asks how the world might have unfolded if one moment had gone very differently. I remember first reading these stories. My husband, who usually doesn't go for fantasy, dug out his old crumbling paperbacks and brought them to me while I was sick in bed, recovering from illness. One story in and I was hooked. Garrett's entire world rests on one bold change. In real history, Richard the Lionheart died on April 6, 1199, from a crossbow wound. Garrett asks, what if he had survived? What if the Plantagenet dynasty had remained in power for the following centuries up until today? The notion isn't as far-fetched as it seems. Another Plantagenet, several generations later, named Henry, survived a crossbow bolt to the face. Medical science wasn't that much more advanced in his day than it had been in Richard's. Henry was just luckier. The stories themselves, they're light, clever, and perfect for summer reading or for those days when you're home in bed sick and need to be diverted or some adventure. They're still in print today, though under copyright until 2058, which means I'll be long gone before they hit the free public domain. But that doesn't mean they're out of reach. Thanks to the Internet Archive, there's another way to step into Garrett's world of mystery, magic, and Plantagenets right from home. If your local library can't find the book you want, or you can't find one at a price that suits your store, there is a possible alternative. You may be able to read a digital copy for free. I'm going to introduce you to the Internet Archive. This is a nonprofit digital library. Its mission is to provide universal access to all knowledge. It has an enormous collection of digitized content, including books, movies, music, software, and even copies of old websites. The most important feature for us is your ability to borrow digitized books for free. This makes it an invaluable resource for students, researchers, and anyone looking to access a wide range of literature or media. Let me walk you through how it works. Here's a simple step-by-step guide. Start off by opening your browser and pointing it to archive.org. Then, assuming this is your first visit, click on Sign Up in the top right-hand corner of the home page. You'll be asked to give some information, including your email, and pick out a username and password. Be sure to write them down because you'll need them later. After you create the account, click on Sign In, also in the top right-hand corner, and enter that username and password to log into your account. Next, you get to look for a book or a topic. Use the search bar on the page to type in the title or author of the book you want to find, if you know it, or a more general search bar, something like medieval history. Press Enter or click the search icon and you'll see the results. You'll be confronted, depending on how much you narrow down your query, with either one or two or possibly an enormous choice. Browse through the search results and click on the title of any book you want to look at. If you find an item you're interested in, be sure to mark it as a favorite. That way you can find it next time you come back without having to go through the search process another time. If you decide you want to borrow the book, on the Books page, look for the Borrow button. If the book is available for borrowing, you'll see this option. Just click on it. Now for a few details. Loans from the digital library are for 1 hour, but they keep renewing as long as you keep your browser open. And there you have it. You now have access to a free resource that will allow you to search for all kinds of documents, old and new, images, videos, audios, and more. You can always come back the next day, the next week, or the next month and borrow the book a second time. That's where that handy Favorites button will really save you some time and effort. Thank you for joining me today for the debut episode in my new Armchair Traveler Investigates playlist. This series won't cover famous cities or walks or history or biography, but information I discover, mostly by accident, along the way that may be useful or interesting to you. If you enjoyed this content, remember to like and subscribe. That way more people will see it. Come back next time for another adventure with me, the Armchair Traveler, as your guide.